Are these 3 time management myths secretly stealing your productivity? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jorge Calaos. I am a business lawyer based in Florida, specializing in high-stakes lawsuits, and in this channel, we explore the principles and strategies to help us live more productive, meaningful, and fulfilling lives. Time management myth number 1, time can be managed. Time cannot be managed. Time will pass regardless of what you do, whether you like it or not. What you manage is how you use time. And the way you do that is by managing yourself and your environment. By effectively managing yourself and your environment, you make time work in your favor instead of it working against you. But you cannot manage time. Time will always pass at its own speed and at its own pace, regardless of what you do. But anyways, one way that you can manage yourself is to manage your bandwidth. Like a computer, our brains have a certain bandwidth. They have a certain capacity for how many things they can process at one time. So if you're handling a bunch of projects all at once, that's going to push and drain your bandwidth. With a drained bandwidth, you're going to be far less productive. You're also going to start feeling a little burned out if your bandwidth is always operating at its most pushed capacity. Now, I won't go into it in this video, but I made an entire video about this concept of bandwidth, how we can manage it with specific action steps that we can take to reduce the amount of bandwidth that we use on a daily basis so we can use that leftover bandwidth to do even more things or to just simply enjoy life. If you want to check that video out, I'll put the link right up here. Another way that you can manage yourself and your environment and your bandwidth is through systems. Now, I talk about these systems a lot in this channel, like for example, my calendaring system, my to-do list system, my follow-up system to remind me to follow up on things I need following up on. This is how I'm able to do everything I'm able to do. Now, the most important thing is that whatever system you design for yourself, it has to be a system that you can trust. Because if you don't trust the system, then you have to continuously and actively manage and oversee that system. And so instead of the system taking things off your plate, the system becomes another thing that you have to manage and another thing that takes up bandwidth in your mind. If this concept of systems interests you, make sure you subscribe to the channel because this is where I share all my systems, as well as ideas for how you can create your own. Time management myth number 2, multitasking is efficient time management. Multitasking is not efficient time management. Maybe when it comes to small things or unimportant things or things that don't require a lot of energy or mental focus. For example, if you're in a Zoom meeting that doesn't really require your involvement, but you have to be there anyways, you might answer emails while you're in the Zoom meeting. To everybody I've ever been on a Zoom meeting with, I've never done this with you, but with things like that. Or maybe you're doing laundry and listening to a podcast in the background. But when it comes to, let's just say, bigger things, the science has shown that multitasking is a very inefficient use of our mental resources. For example, one study found that heavy media multitaskers are more susceptible to interference from irrelevant environmental stimuli and from irrelevant representations in memory. In other words, multitasking makes you more easily distracted, which results in an impaired focus. Another study found that heavy media multitaskers exhibited lower working memory performance regardless of whether external distraction was present or absent, and that lower performance on multiple working memory tasks predicted lower long-term memory performance. In other words, multitasking results in an impaired memory, both short-term and long-term. And a third study found that multitasking leads to higher levels of stress and frustration. Now, I'm sure you can understand how an impaired focus and impaired memory and higher levels of stress and frustration can lead to a decrease in efficiency, which is ironic because the reason most of us multitask is because we think we'll be more efficient. But according to the science, the opposite is actually true. Another concept related to multitasking has to do with the residue of your attention. So when you're focusing on task A and then you move to task B for a second, so let's say that task A is a project you're working on and task B is an email that comes in. When you answer the email and then you go back to task A, a residue of your attention is left on task B. A residue of your attention is left on that email and whatever the contents of that email were. So when you come back from the email to the project, your attention doesn't immediately shift back completely to the project. A residue of your attention stays with the email and it takes some time for that attention to come back to your project. And some of the science shows that it can take upwards of half an hour for that residue to come back to the project. If you want to learn more about the science of multitasking and some action steps that you can take to stop multitasking, I made a video about multitasking that I'll link up here. And finally, time management myth number 3, time management is about doing more. In my opinion, it's a little bit about doing more, but it's not exclusively or even primarily about doing more. Obviously, it's super nice to be able to do more things with our time, but it's more important to do the things that matter. In other words, quality is more important than quantity. While time management is a little bit about doing more, to me, it's more about prioritization. Being able to prioritize our tasks so we don't spend our time doing things that are a waste of our time while we neglect the things that are most important. So while we can't manage time, we do invest time. And it's important to invest our time in high impact activities over meaningless tasks. A related and also very interesting concept is the 80-20 rule, which states, among other things, that 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions. If you want to learn more about the 80-20 rule and how you can identify the 20% of actions that generate 80% of your results, click here to check out that video. And as always, if you like this content and want to see more of it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on, and click the link in the description box below to sign up for my weekly email newsletter where I send you content like this every Monday via email to get you started for the week. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.